everyone, this is She's Making Something, and I'm back with another cake video, but this time I wanted to do things a little differently. I have all the cake elements pre-made and ready to go. The cake is baked, the frosting's made and colored, the detail elements are waiting in the fridge, and I just want to see how long it takes me to assemble all of these different pieces into a finished cake. So I have a timer set up on a tablet that will be going the whole time, and let's just see what happens. Normally when I'm putting together a cake, I either have to stop every 5 minutes to get someone a snack or break up a fight or other parenting duties, or I wait until all the kids have gone to bed and start putting together the cakes at like 10 o'clock at night so I'm not interrupted. This time I'm putting together the cake on a Saturday morning while my kids are cleaning their rooms, and my goal is to get it done before they are done. I am going to be speeding up the video for the sake of your time and mine, but the timer will remain in frame to keep me honest about exactly how long this is going to take me. I am not a professional baker. I have no formal skills training. Everything I learned about cakes I have learned from YouTube videos like this one. So my cakes are not professional masterpieces. They are homemade, imperfect cakes made with love from my friends and family. And this cake is for my mom's birthday. It is a basic 8-inch round 2-layer yellow butter cake with chocolate frosting. So my kids are currently obsessed with my parents' backyard vegetable garden, constantly asking to go check on the crops at grandma's house, like we live in the rural farm country and not in the suburbs of a major city. So I decided to try and decorate this cake to look like a vegetable garden for my mom to honor the happiness and joy that her hobby brings to my family. So the screen on my daughter's tablet kept turning off, which was super annoying as I tried to start this video, but I changed the settings on the tablet in just a second to fix that problem. When I'm making a cake, I always try to remember to bake the cakes a day or two before assembling, and then I wrap them up and put them in the freezer. And this is for a few reasons. Number one, it saves time on assembly day, so I don't have to bake and assemble the cake on the same day. And number two, it makes the crumb coat a lot easier to deal with because the frosting hardens up pretty fast if you put it on a frozen cake. So if it's a small basic cake like this one, then I usually don't have to take the extra time to chill the cake between the crumb coat and the decorative layers, because the frosting is already chilled. My plan or design for this cake involves covering pretty much the entire cake with pipework and different details, so I don't need a perfectly smooth finish on my frosting. If I was going for a smooth cake with those sharp edges, then this particular part of the process would take a whole lot more time, especially since I don't have a lot of practice with smooth-sided cakes, since I tend to prefer designs with a lot of piping. But by that logic, you would think my piping skills would be even better than they are now, but whatever. I'm still a work in progress, and that applies to all parts of my life. So I did try my best to gather everything I needed onto my workspace to minimize the time I spent running around my kitchen, but you'll still see me walk away to grab another piping bag or throw something away or to repeatedly wash my hands. Unfortunately, my home kitchen layout is not as efficient compared to how I imagine a bakery shop would be organized. So you saw me grab that one piping tip, I don't even know what it's called, but it's flat and smooth on one side and kind of ridged on the other. I've used this piping tip before to pipe a basket weave pattern when I made a flower basket cake, but this time I'm just going to pipe vertical lines up and down on the side of the cake. The idea was it would look like or give the impression of like fence posts, but it also kind of looks like plowed fields. So either way it worked. This part of the video right here is actually sped up to 600% speed because I doubt any of you really want to sit and watch me do this for, well, I'll do the math in a second, but I'm going to slow it down to regular 100% speed just for a moment so you can see how slow this process actually is. I remember when I did the basket weave pattern, it took like 20 or 30 minutes and it was exhausting. Piping work is not quick, y'all. Okay, so I started the sides at around 13 minutes and it looks like I finished around 20 minutes. So 7 whole minutes spent just piping this silly little detail on only the sides of the cake. Now it is finally time for the fun part and my favorite part, which is the cute little garden on top. I used a large skewer to mark out the garden sections because I could not find my toothpicks anywhere. But I made 6 different vegetables, so I wanted 6 different garden sections, and then a nice full section at the back to leave room for a sign. The chocolate frosting on the top is still technically the crumb coat, and people usually want more frosting than that, so I also wanted fresh and not chilled frosting to help the Oreo dirt element adhere better. Since there was still frosting in the piping bag, I just used that to fill in my sections, leaving space in between for the green grass. That wonderful piping tip, adding that look of plowed fields again in case any of this is still poking through at the end. So my kids suggested using chocolate sprinkles for dirt, and that would work too, but I wanted an excuse to buy a packet of Oreos because they are one of my top 10 favorite things to eat. And I know that crushed Oreos will stick to fresh frosting, but frosting does not want to stick to Oreos, and I still had more piping work to do. So I tried to be careful and spoon it only onto my garden sections, but I made a giant mess anyways. As I mentioned before, this video is only assembling the cake. This does not include making the frosting and coloring all the frosting. I used a lot of colors in this cake, and I used 2 different shades of green. The one I'm using for the grass is Wilton's moss green color, and I use it all the time. I love making cakes that have natural elements like flowers and plants because they are organic and flowy and allow for imperfections and creative messiness and still look really good. I don't know if you noticed that, my frosting is having trouble sticking at the moment because frosting does not want to stick to Oreos, like I said, but I worked through it. One of my favorite cakes I ever made was a small tree stump cake for my sister because it was so relaxing and playful in its natural, unpretentious look, and I loved it. I had so much fun. I don't have a grass piping tip, though I have been meaning to get one for a while, but a closed star tip and these little bunches have a very plant-like feel to them. And as I mentioned before, I'm not a professional, I am an amateur, and my piping skills are still improving. And so for this cake, I was not going for realistic. I was going more for impressionist. And you'll see that when I pull out all these vegetables. My kids and I liked playing a game of Guess the Vegetable, where they looked at the finished cake and pointed to each vegetable and guessed what it was. So I'm not going to tell you what they all are, and maybe you can guess what I meant for these vegetables to represent. So I did not include the coloring and the piping of all these fruits and vegetables in my total time of assembling the cake because I did that the night before. It took about 2 hours. I did find a few tutorials on how to make these out of fondant, but I was stubborn and I wanted to do buttercream, So I made it up. I played around with different piping tips and techniques until I decided enough was enough, and it was as good as it was gonna get. So I made way too many of each kind because there were a lot of mess ups and I wanted options. I stuck my whole tray of veggies that I made last night into the fridge so they can harden up. And then when it's time to put them on the cake, I can just pick up whichever ones were my favorite and plop them right down the cake. It also meant I could take a little time to arrange and rearrange until I was happy with the layout. And if you're stuck guessing which foods these are meant to be, you aren't the only one. They're supposed to be pumpkin, purple cabbage, watermelon, tomatoes, corn, and carrots. The watermelon and the tomatoes seemed particularly hard for people to recognize, so if you know a better way to make those out of buttercream, I would love to hear it. I mentioned I used two colors of green, the moss green for the grass, and then I used a brighter, lighter green for leaves and vines on the food to help it stand out and add some dimension. I use a tiny round tip for the vines, and then I have two different size leaf tips. But since these are all the same color, I use my handy plastic screw tips so I can easily switch between the different piping tips without having to change to a completely new piping bag. This part was the most nerve-wracking for me because the vines and leaves are fresh buttercream, which makes it harder to fix if I mess up, and I can never seem to get the right buttercream consistency for perfect leaves. But it is always worth it because it adds life to any plant or floral-based cake. And again, remember this video is sped up. I do not pipe that fast. Here it is at 100% speed, and you can see that I'm very slow and shaky and trying to be as careful as possible. We're finally nearing the end now, and this went a lot faster than I anticipated, probably because I did a lot of prep work the night before, and it is a rather simple cake compared to some I've done previously, meaning it's not a multi-tiered cake. I didn't do any fillings, no fancy color work or extra smoothed sides. I kept the piping simple. Even cleaning up sprinkle pizzazz takes extra time that I didn't have to do for this particular cake. Last thing I need to do is the sign that says Grandma's Garden, and I did have to redo it because I forgot how many letters are in the word Grandma's. And even after that, my daughter looked at the finished cake and said the plain black and white sign was not enough, and she ended up making a really pretty blue sign with purple flowers on it that ended up replacing this one anyways. A little finishing border around the bottom of the cake, and time. 44, almost 45 minutes. And only one of the kids had finished cleaning their room, so I consider it a win. If you would like to see more videos like this or have any ideas on what I can work on or you want to see next, subscribe, like, comment, you know the drill. Thanks for joining me.